What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. You already know it is the 904 Strength Club, home of the strongest content coming out of Northeast Florida. Today, I am back with another one in the series targeting beginners, giving you guys the game, giving you guys all the knowledge that you're ever going to need. Seriously, this is just being done to help you so that you can build a sustainable habit of going to the gym and having great success in the gym. Today, I'm going to cover 5 movements that I think are, I don't want to say inappropriate, but I think that beginners should by and large avoid these movements for the most part. And I'm going to give you substitutes for these movements that are much more appropriate for a beginner and potentially more appropriate for most people in many circumstances. And without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and jump off into the deep end and start with squats. Now, listen to me. All right. Squats are a great total body developer. However, if you go to any gym in this fine country and you hang out long enough, you're going to see a member of the quarter squat mafia. It's inevitable. These people never learn to squat to depth. They develop bad habits. Now they will complain about not being able to hit depth because they can't hit depth with the appreciable load that they're used to because they're used to quarter squatting, and they can quarter squat a lot more weight. So somebody that's quarter squatting 500 pounds might have to drop to under 300 pounds in order to get a full range of motion squat. And they really have zero interest in doing that. So what do? You do box squats. Box squats are going to be more appropriate, in my opinion, for the vast majority of people, not just in the beginning, but also long term, because every single time you are going to hit depth, you are going to be able to repeat that movement, and you're going to be able to ensure that every rep counts. So 12 to 14 inches is the box height that you're typically looking for in order to make sure that you are hitting or going below parallel. We do not squat 2 boxes, we box squat. You do not just come down and touch, all right? The box doesn't just touch the butt, all right? You're going to unrack, and you are going to break at the hips and then sit all the way down on that box, and you're going to stay there for a second to break up the eccentric and the concentric. Then you're going to flex your glutes to get back up off the box, and you're going to go back to standing. That's a rep. Every time you box squat, you're hitting depth. All right. Athletes especially, I think, will benefit from box squatting because it teaches you to be very strong in the most disadvantaged position. All right. So that's number 1. Number 2, I've already talked about these, but I'm going to go ahead and bring it back up again because it has a place here in this discussion, and that is ollie lifts. I talked specifically about the clean and jerk or the power clean because coaches love to say that they teach explosive triple extension. It does, but that's kind of like me saying that if I go to school to get a degree in electrical engineering, I'll learn how to wire a light switch. Okay, it's overkill. You're going to spend months and months and months perfecting your technique so that you can do it in the most optimal way. And that's months of not working with a meaningful load in developing explosive triple extension. All right. What you can do, kettlebell swings. It's very easy to do a kettlebell swing. You can learn how to do a kettlebell swing very quickly, where you're not squatting with a kettlebell and then using your arms to raise it forward. This isn't developing your shoulders. This is, you're going to start with your butt back, bent over. You're going to hike the ball between your legs like you are a long snapper. And then you are going to extend with your hips all the way through. And you are going to use that momentum from your hips contacting your arms and let that carry that kettlebell out. And then it's going to come back, and you're going to go bend your hips back and repeat. All right. Explosive triple extension. Another option would be sandbags and or stones, learning to go from your lap to an extended position, whether that's loading it over a bar, loading it to a platform, or taking it to shoulder. This is a very simple movement pattern that's also going to teach an athlete explosive triple extension, and you're not going to spend months trying to learn how to be efficient at the movement so that you can then do an appreciable load in order to develop and become more explosive. Number three, a lot of people are going to agree with me because social media told them to hate this lift, but it's sumo deadlifts. And here's the thing, right? The vast majority of people having an opinion about sumo deadlifts and hating on sumo deadlifts is like Americans hating some aspect of cricket. Okay, we don't watch it. It doesn't involve us. Why should you care? Unless you're going to participate in the sport of powerlifting, why should you have an opinion? You don't care about the sport. You just have this opinion because it's popular to have this opinion. All right. Now, why is a sumo deadlift not a great developmental lift? Because you're attempting to put yourself in a much more mechanically advantaged position so that you can lift more weight. It is great for getting more pounds on the scoreboard for lifters. It is not great for development. The conventional deadlift is far superior for development to actually train the hip hinge. You will train everything on your posterior chain with a conventional deadlift. With a sumo deadlift, you're still going to get some stimulus to your posterior chain, but not like you do with a conventional deadlift. Alternatively, you can do trap bar deadlifts as well. Now, here's the thing about trap bar deadlifts. They're either going to mimic a squat or a deadlift, depending on how you set up. And this is the key. If you want trap bar deadlifts to train the hip hinge, you need to set up with your shins more upright. If you want the trap bar deadlift to mimic a squat more, you set up with your knees a little bit more forward. It's that simple. Beyond that, grab it and growl. Number four is this peculiar lift that was very popular at one point. I think that the popularity has kind of died off, but I still see people doing it to some extent. That is the overhead squat. The advent of CrossFit and the introduction of a lot of people to Olympic lifting in the early 2000s brought with it some of the accessory work, of which overhead squats are one of those movements. Overhead squats are a great developer for the snatch. However, if you're not doing a sport that requires you to do snatches and you were just doing snatches because you wanted to learn explosive triple extension or considering them for that, now that I've given you better movements for learning explosive triple extension, do you really need to do a movement whose sole application is development of a movement that you don't need to do? No, it's a waste of time. Overhead squats are squatting with a less meaningful weight in order to get yourself used to coming up out of the hole from the snatch and being able to go to full lockout. All right. If you really want some other variation of squat because you don't just want to do back squats, you can do front squats, bar in rack like this, or you can do Zercher squats and lay it right in the crook of your elbows like that. You can do both of those to a box as well. Great development movements. Do beginners really need to mess with it? No, just hit your box squats. But if you really want to change things up and you really want to introduce a squat variation in there, go for it. Have fun. Number 5, and one of the worst offenders other than the quarter squat mafia, but the quarter squat mafia is a subset of it, is partial range of motion lifts like rack pulls and block pulls and short stroking the leg press. These are a huge waste of time because what you're doing is you're putting more weight on than what you need to put on in order to work the strongest portion of the lift. Why are you working the strongest portion of the lift? You're not going to get stronger from working the strongest portion of the lift. You're going to get stronger from working the weakest portion of the lift. There are applications for partial range of motion lifts. There most certainly are within strength sports. Today, my workout consisted of doing a partial range of motion overhead press. I set the pins in the squat rack so that I was overhead pressing from right here. Why? Because after I do my traditional push, I end up somewhere right here to where I've got to start muscling it up from there. Guess what happens when I focus on that weak point though? The lift goes down. I can lift more from here than I can from here. All right. So I use a partial range of motion in order to target a weak point. And by and large, that's what you're going to see a lot of people doing with partial range of motion. When you see people doing partial range of motion rack pulls, a lot of the times they're working around their sticking point in order to strengthen up their sticking point. All right. So that's where partial range of motion becomes very handy. On the other end of the spectrum, there is a place for overload work, which partial range of motion can be used for overload work. That's something that's an advanced technique that you don't need to worry about for probably years because it's a plateau buster. When you actually get to a plateau and you spend a couple of years of training and you need to really start thinking about getting strategic about busting through a plateau, you can do overload work in order to bust through a plateau because it resets where your brain feels things are heavy by adding additional weight and holding it in some way that is similar to the movement pattern that you were working in. That works. Very limited application. For a beginner, it's pretty much useless other than so they can feel good and post it on the gram. So anyways, that's it for this video. These are 5 movements that most beginners should avoid. There's a use case for each of these for beginners, but the vast majority of beginners should avoid committing these sins within the gym. Beyond that, if you are interested in programming, check the link below. I am still working through the Joy app, and I did drop the price on my programming because I don't want price to be an obstacle. You're getting a lot of value. You're getting a macro tracker. You're getting something that is going to help you on your fitness journey, and you get programming by me because I'm pretty much a genius, sort of, or an autist. I don't know, whatever it is. Beyond that, I hope you guys are staying strong with your resolutions, getting lots of progress, and moving forward and moving ahead and sticking to it. We'll see you on the next one.